You're listening to the Play Therapy Parenting Podcast with Dr. Brenna Hicks.
Hi, I'm Dr. Brenna Hicks, the Kid Counselor. This is the Play Therapy Parenting Podcast where I give you insight, awareness, and enlightenment about your parenting and your relationship with your kids. In today's episode, we are addressing the fourth and final pillar, which is encouragement. So we've already covered reflecting feelings, choice giving. Limit setting actually combines the first two. And then encouragement kind of lives as a separate entity. But interestingly enough, the effect that encouragement has on children influences everything that happens for the child. And so we're going to talk about how that building of self-esteem is such an important foundation for kids, especially with all of the other skills that you will be implementing and all of the skills that the child will be gaining through the process. So encouragement is a little bit of a standalone more than the other three, yet interestingly has an extremely powerful influence in the child's behavior and in the whole process of development. So let's start at square one. So the encouragement pillar is essentially a builder of child self-esteem. And I want to make that very clear before we dive into more details, because the outcome of using encouragement with a child consistently is that they have a better sense of self-worth, of self-confidence, of self-concept, of self-identity. There's so much that is gained when someone encourages a child. And so obviously, self-esteem development is a lifelong process. That's not something that we reach a point and we say, okay, I've officially arrived, right? And so the more we encourage children, the more it allows them to really deeply understand who they are, what they're capable of, and want to actually work by putting forth effort to accomplish things. So we are going to look at the difference between praise versus encouragement. We're going to talk about focusing on the effort rather than the outcome. And we're going to talk about the development of an internal locus of control. And all of that is related to the encouragement pillar. So that's what we're diving into today. The path to calm, confident, and in control parenting starts now. All right, so if we don't start with the contrast between praise versus encouragement, the entire current encouragement pillar falls apart. So let's begin there. So when we think about the terms praise versus encouragement, often we will ask a question, what is the difference, or how do we differentiate praise and encouragement? And oftentimes we get answers along the lines of they're pretty much the same thing. And that actually could not be further from the truth. So when we are thinking about praise versus encouragement, do both of them serve the purpose of acknowledging something about the child? Yes. Are both of them used in an attempt to potentially make the child feel good about something? Yes. But that's about where the similarities end. So here's what is really a foundational premise upon which the encouragement pillar stands. Praise always includes a value judgment. So let's think through what children typically hear from adults in their life. In other words, child brings home an A on a test. Child paints a painting in art class. Child scores the goal at soccer. Child hits a home run at baseball. Child gets a Student of the Month award. You fill in the blank. What are the standard phrases that adults in the child's life are going to say? Great job. That's awesome. You're amazing. It's so beautiful. I'm so proud of you. You're so smart. And the list goes on and on. Notice that every single one of those phrases has a value judgment in it. And the easiest way to think about a value judgment is that it always has an opposite. So in other words, if you say you're so smart, you could also say you're so stupid. If you say great job, you could say terrible job. If you say you're amazing, you could say you're underwhelming. If you say I love it, you could say I hate it, and the list goes on. So I want to make it very clear that almost always what we say to children is praise, and we don't even realize that we're doing it. But because there are value-laden words attached to the phrases, it essentially becomes our opinion and our impression of whatever the circumstance or situation is. So child paints you a painting, a praise statement is what we think about it. Child brings home an A, it's what we think about it. Child scores a goal or hits a home run, it's what we think about it. It actually communicates a message to the child that our opinion is the most important thing that matters in that situation. So when we use praise statements, which by the way, you will work very hard to never use praise again after this. With knowledge comes responsibility, y'all. So once you are aware of the value-laden nature of praise statements, it becomes really, really important to use encouragement instead. So rather than throwing a value-laden word into the scenario, you're going to recognize that what a child really needs from you is an encouragement response, which will only ever start with you. So when you start a sentence with you, it's pretty clear that the focus is on the child. It's not what you think. It's not what you feel. It's not your opinion. It's not your belief. If you start it with you, it's very clearly about the child. And that right there, just focusing on the child, that's a very powerful builder of self-esteem. Just noticing that a child did something is a very powerful builder of self-esteem. So when we start with you, you'll be on the right track to encourage. And I don't know if you've connected the dots yet, but let me help draw those lines for you. If you'll notice, all of these pillars, there's consistency in the way that we start phrases. When we reflect feelings, we start with you. When we set limits, we start with you. When we give choices, we start with you. When we esteem build and encourage, we start with you. So that should be a really helpful cue that when you're interacting with your children, you're probably on the right track with what you're about to say if the first word that comes out of your mouth is the word you. So when we're thinking about praise versus encouragement, we want to make sure that we are not using value-laden words. And I think it's important to dive in a little deeper about why we don't want to use value-laden words. When we praise a child, they actually become dependent on our validation. And, no one's looking, so feel free to raise your hand high if you are a people pleaser. So all of you people pleasers out there, I'm raising mine halfway because I'm a reformed people pleaser, but I sure as heck was one for a really long time in my life, and I had to work really hard to get over that. But I was praised unnecessarily ad nauseum a lot when I was a child. And that's not critical, and that's not judgmental, and that's not resentful. It just is what it is. And what that does is you become dependent on other people's validation. You become dependent on other people's acknowledgement. You become dependent on other people's acceptance to a point where you really can't function unless someone tells you good job. How many kids, maybe it's your own child, or maybe you know a child that every time they do something, do you like it? Is it good? Is it nice? What do you think? Is it awesome? Are you proud of me? That is because they've been praised. And it's because they believe that they only have worth when someone tells them that what they did was worthwhile. So kids become paralyzed by their need for acknowledgement and validation. And they really have no sense of the investment in accomplishing something just because they wanted to accomplish it. So to combat the praise that children get everywhere, and I don't use absolutes unless I mean them, children are praised everywhere by everyone all the time. Teachers do it, coaches do it, grandparents do it, parents do it. Every adult in a child's world praises them. And in most cases, it's because you don't know what you don't know. Most people haven't even ever considered that praise is different than encouragement. Most people have never heard of the child-centered play therapy approach to parenting. So it's okay that children are praised all the time because people don't know any better. But listening to this podcast, you will now know better. So the challenge is you will eliminate value-laden words from your interactions with your kids, and you will replace those statements with encouragement phrases instead. And I'll show you what encouragement phrases look like in a little bit, but I want to share a couple other things first. The beauty of encouragement is that it can be used in any situation, regardless of the outcome. So even if a child loses a race, even if a child does not accomplish a goal, even if a child fails a science experiment, even if a child gives up before they finish the Lego build they were trying to work on, encouragement can always be provided because it is about the effort and the contribution rather than the outcome. It's never about the end result. So when we understand that encouragement is always something you can offer, and it is solely focused on the child's effort and contribution to whatever they were doing, it opens up the opportunity to use encouragement all the time. And that becomes the antidote to the praise that they hear everywhere else. Someone in their life has to encourage them. If all they ever hear is praise, how will they ever know what it feels like to do something because they want to and because it fulfills them? They will only ever do something to get external validation so that someone will tell them good job. And so when we realize that it's effort-based, we can encourage a child even when in a standard scenario, we wouldn't really be able to praise them. If a child comes in last place in a track meet, are you intending to say good job to them? Probably not. And if you did, they wouldn't receive it well because they know they didn't do a good job. However, if you say, you worked really hard and you didn't give up, you finished. Those are all true. And it's not about the outcome, so a child can receive that. I'm sure they're still not going to be pleased that they came in last, but they can at least hear the words, you didn't give up, you kept going, you finished the race. Those are all important lessons, even when the outcome isn't what we expected or hoped for. So that's another component. And then I think a final thing that is important before I give you some examples of what encouragement looks like, it's really helpful to keep in mind that when we encourage children rather than praise them, they develop an internal locus of control. And that's a fancy way of saying you are motivated from within. So I'm not looking for external validation. I'm not looking to be validated. I'm not looking to be told that someone is happy about what I did. I am driven from within to do something because either I want to do it, or because I've chosen to do it, or because it makes me feel good to try, or because I am fulfilled within myself because this is something that I wanted to attempt. And there are lots and lots of people in this world that have external locus of control issues. So if someone does not tell me good job, I can't handle it. If someone does not praise me, I have no sense of worth, and therefore I can't function. And you know me, I don't really spend a whole lot of time worrying about ruffling feathers. So I hope that this isn't going to ruffle some feathers, but this is the inherent problem with the everyone gets a trophy mentality. Because all we're doing is telling kids, good job, we're so proud of you. Even if you lost every game the whole season, even if you couldn't catch a ball one time the entire season, even if you threw your bat and helmet every time you walked into the dugout and you had a terrible attitude and you refused to do what the coach told you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, you still get a trophy. Okay. This is the inherent fundamental problem with praise. We make kids dependent on being recognized At what point does the child say, I want to play baseball because I love baseball. I want to work really hard in practice because I want to be better at baseball. I want to show up every single day and put in the work because it means something to me. Even if I'm not good yet, I know that I can be good. I'm going to keep working at this. That is internal motivation. That is internal locus of control. And let me extend this a little further, because the everyone gets a trophy mentality is difficult enough for me to swallow as a child-centered play therapist. But the fact that universities are creating safe rooms or calm down rooms, I don't even know what they're calling them. There's all kinds of terms that are being thrown around, but universities are creating these little calm down corners, if you will, in universities where students can go if they get overwhelmed, or students can go if they just need to give themselves a minute. This is what happens when a child never has to look within themselves to find the inner strength to do what needs to be done. And unfortunately, we have 18 through 22-year-olds, maybe even sometimes upwards of 24-year-olds, that are full-grown adults in college living independently, and they have such poor coping skills, and they have such little resilience, and they are so dependent on other people telling them that they're doing a good job and that they're going to be okay and you're going to make it, that they can't function without giving themselves calm down rooms. So I know that's like a big picture illustration, but we don't want that for our children, right? We want kids that are resilient and that believe in themselves and that have coping and that trust themselves and that build self-esteem so that they know they can handle anything. Guess how we get there? We encourage our children instead of praise them. So when we encourage, we are going to start with the word you, and we're going to focus on their effort. So you're not giving up. You're continuing to try. You'll figure it out. You did it. You got it. You solved the problem. You worked hard. You kept trying until you did it. You have a plan. Notice how you can say it in any circumstance, and it has nothing to do with what you think about it. That's extremely important because that eliminates the value-laden component, right? And so if a child shows you a drawing or a painting or some art project, I can almost promise that the normal reaction would be, oh my gosh, I love it. Or, oh my gosh, it's beautiful. Or, oh my word, good job. It's awesome. Okay. All well-intended, all meant to make a child feel happy. But instead we say, oh my gosh, you use so many colors. Oh, and you put this here and you put that there. You picked 7 different colors of paint in this. You used your fingers to make all these marks. Notice that it's not evaluative at all. It's just about what the child did. When a child is struggling to work on something and they have not gotten the outcome that they want, you're continuing to try. You're not giving up. You're going to keep going until you figure it out. You have a plan. You know what to do. You can handle that. Now, all of a sudden, the message the child is getting is, I can do this. I'm not giving up. I do have a plan. I'm going to keep trying. Then if they actually accomplish something, you did it. You got it. You figured it out. You solved the problem. You knew what to do. I did solve the problem. I did know what to do. I did work it out. I did figure it out. Look at how the evaluation that takes place within the child becomes, that is true. I do feel that way. I did do that. I did all those things that someone just told me. Instead of, mom thinks that I'm smart. Mom thinks that I did a good job. Dad thinks that my picture's awesome. My teacher thinks that I am the best in the class. Notice that that's all about other people. So the encouragement pillar is extremely, extremely powerful. And here's the final takeaway. Self-esteem is a foundational component for almost all change in a child. It's kind of a hinge pin, if you will. So as a child feels more confident, as a child builds self-esteem, as a child starts to believe in their ability to handle things, to problem solve, that they can trust themselves, that they can accept themselves, that they're proud of themselves, that changes everything about their interactions. It changes their relationships. It changes their behavior. They start to behave in more self-enhancing ways. They start to try and accomplish things. They interact with peers differently. They interact with siblings differently. They have a whole different outlook on almost every situation. Why? Because they're happy with themselves. Self-esteem changes the whole game. And many, many changes in behavior can be mapped back to a change in self-esteem. So when we encourage, that is an esteem building approach. And that is very, very powerful for helping our children become the children that they can be and becoming a happier, better version of themselves. So your challenge this week is to catch yourself praising your kids, because if you've historically praised, you will still continue to, but you will at least start to catch yourself. And as soon as you catch yourself praising, follow it up with an encouragement. So if you say, good job, and then you realize that was a praise, then you say, you worked hard. So make sure that since your standard and your habit is to praise, once you hear yourself praising and you recognize it, follow it up with an encouragement response. And then over time, you can replace the praise with the encouragement, and then you'll be able to stop praising altogether. So I hope that you find that helpful. I hope that that gives you some challenge and encouragement this week. And if you would like to sign up for my email newsletter, I'd love to have you get involved in that. You can go to playtherapyparenting.com and you can sign up there. And when you subscribe, I'll send you a video of a birth order workshop that I did. I love birth order. I'll probably end up doing a podcast episode on that at some point, but birth order is fantastic. So I'd be happy to send you that 3-hour workshop that I did and how it affects your kids' personalities. So if you want to get in touch with me, I'd love to hear from you, Brenna@thekidcounselor.com, or you can call into the hotline and leave a message with a question, and I can answer your question on an episode in the future, 813-812-5525. I'm so grateful for each and every one of you. Thanks so much for investing in your kids, investing in your parenting. There's nothing more rewarding than knowing that you're doing everything you can to create the kind of relationship that you want with your children. So I deeply value you. I hope that this encourages you, and I can't wait to talk to you again soon. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Play Therapy Parenting Podcast with Dr. Brenna Hicks. For more episodes and to subscribe to our newsletter, please go to www.playtherapyparenting.com.